Welcome to the Connected Intelligence Spotlight, and it's time to take a look at 5G's progress. It's been 18 months since the first towers were lit up, and the technology has sparked a lot of interesting discussions on both sides of the fence. On the one hand, we have people who are convinced that 5G caused COVID-19, or even that COVID-19 is a ruse to hide the fact that 5G is killing us. Those are just a couple of the basic conspiracies that swirl around 5G. There are plenty more, and to be clear, they are complete and utter nonsense. On the other side of the argument, we have the true 5G believers who are still convinced, even after 18 months of relative inactivity, that 5G is poised to change our world. Now that's not complete nonsense, but it's a lot more complicated than that. To understand the problem, let's take a quick step back and consider the past Gs or generations. 1G is easy, it gave us voice, it's the basics. 2G gave us messaging eventually, 3G gave us the web, and 4G was really the jackpot, supporting video, gaming, and so on. In other words, to a great extent, each G generation supported a pre-existing need. 5G, on the other hand, is there to support more of a future need that's not yet discovered. The build it and they will come approach worked pretty well for Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams, but I don't recall him waiting for 18 months after completing his baseball field. That team came pretty quickly after that. And I do want to quickly address the typical argument that we wouldn't have Uber without 4G, thus providing a strength to that build it and they will come argument. So to be perfectly clear, Uber actually launched before 4G was lit up in the US, not 18 months afterwards. Now that's not to say we didn't see a lot of innovative apps come forward because of 4G. We definitely did. But it is key to remember that the core driver was pre-existing, namely video. So let's talk about those future consumer-facing opportunities. IoT is often cited as a key use case for 5G, tied neatly into that other overused concept of the smart city. While these sensors clearly won't need the high speed that 5G promises, 5G will support far more devices in any given cell than previous iterations of cellular. What that means from a consumer-facing perspective is a closer synergy with the city surrounding you. In particular, more efficient transportation, both private and public, due to better traffic management sensors, as well as monitoring pollution and so on. So sure, it's not a direct consumer benefit the way that some other use cases may be, but it could prove to be an important one, and it's something that we'll be exploring more in a future spotlight. That ties neatly into autonomous cars, which is a little trickier. Some manufacturers are convinced that 5G is necessary for autonomous driving, but we're not convinced. We think the jury's out on that. Until we have a truly uniform coverage of 5G, something we've never actually seen with any other cellular network, I struggle to believe that we can truly rely on that network to manage cars successfully. Instead, I think car-to-car communications and even potentially sensors in the road will be far more effectively. Now, closer to home, we do see some of the benefits of 5G when it comes to streaming gaming. We covered that in the previous spotlight, so I'm not going to dive into too many details on that. Enough to say that with higher speeds and lower latency, the big promise of 5G, we could see mobile devices embracing streaming gaming services. That'll be great news for Stadia and some of the others. And entertainment can also be stretched into a broader category. It's no coincidence that carriers have focused on wiring up sports stadiums with 5G. This could support new levels of interaction between the in-stadium fans and the game they're watching, assuming that crowd-based sports, of course, ever return the way that they were, and let's hope they do. That could mean the ability to rewatch a play from a different camera angle, get information on specific players, or perhaps just get a better view of the action when the guy in front of you blocks your view, assuming, of course, he's not also blocking that millimeter wave signal that you need to be able to get that high speed. But possibly one area of most interest will be augmented reality. Now, to be clear, this isn't a new concept. I know it's become a real buzzword in the last year, but Nokia was playing around with AR back in 2006. Faster communications with 5G could lead to an array of new consumer-related functionality about the world around us, and even new forms of personal communications, such as holographic communications. When using your glasses, you can actually see the other person in that virtual room. In other words, at the end of all of this, what we're going to discover is that 5G is not really the enabler, but rather just one of the ingredients in an overall solution that will typically need new hardware innovation before we can see any exciting new consumer implementations. That's very different from previous generations of cellular that were more app-based, and it's going to take more time. In the meantime, the carriers and reviewers will continue to focus on just how fast that 5G download speed is, or is not, depending where they happen to be at the time in their particular inclination that day, all without any real explanation of why we should care. Where does that leave Kevin Costner? Well, it leaves him with a great field, a dream, but little to show in terms of a team turning up, and he'll just have to wait another 18 months or so. That's our spotlight. Thank you.